Okay, so you're trying to get a handle on important topics quickly, right?
Yep.
Cut through all the noise.
Yeah, get to the core of it.
Exactly. And weight loss, specifically this medication, semaglutide, it's everywhere. It's definitely making headlines.
It really is.
Mm.
And it's interesting because it started out, as a treatment for type 2 diabetes,
Right.
but then it showed this pretty significant effect on weight management. And well, that's why everyone's talking about it.
For sure. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Really get into the science behind semaglutide for weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
We want to look at, how well does it actually work? What are the potential downsides? And sort of how does it fit into the bigger picture of health?
We're drawing on insights from sources like Dan Hollis's Slim by Science, which focuses on these GLP-1 peptides.
Yeah, exactly. And just to be clear, this isn't about finding some magic bullet, right? It's about understanding a potential tool.
A tool, precisely. Okay, so let's break down the core mechanism. How does semaglutide actually do what it does?
Yeah, how does it work?
So it's what's called a GLP-1 receptor agonist, glucagon-like peptide 1.
Okay, GLP-1.
The key thing is it essentially mimics a hormone your body makes naturally, GLP-1.
Ah, so it's like a copycat hormone.
Pretty much. It kind of hijacks your body's own system for managing hunger and blood sugar.
Okay, interesting. So what does mimicking this GLP-1 actually do for weight loss?
Well, it triggers a few really important things. Number one, it really dials up the signals for fullness in your brain.
So you feel satisfied sooner?
Sooner, yeah, and you
think-
stay feeling full for longer, even if you've eaten less.
Okay.
And at the same time, it turns down the volume on those hunger signals.
Yeah.
The ones that make you want to snack between meals.
Reduces cravings, basically.
Exactly. And there's another piece too. It actually slows down how quickly food leaves your stomach. Gastric emptying.
Ah, so that adds to feeling full for longer as well.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So you put all that together, feeling fuller, less hungry, stomach emptying slower. The result is you naturally tend to eat fewer calories.
Right. Without that constant feeling of like battling intense hunger.
Yeah. It makes it physiologically easier.
That does sound pretty elegant, actually. So, okay, that's the how. What about the how well? What do the clinical trials say about effectiveness?
The evidence is pretty strong. Slim by Science mentions the STEP trials, for example.
Right. I've heard of those.
And in those trials, people taking semaglutide lost significantly more weight compared to the folks who got a placebo.
Significantly more.
Yeah, we're talking about a substantial difference. The key takeaway is it provides weight loss beyond what you might get from just diet and exercise in that same period.
That's definitely going to catch people's attention. But the book also stresses it's not just about the drug itself, right? It works best with lifestyle changes.
Oh, absolutely. That's a consistent message. Semaglutide gives you the biggest boost when it's combined with, balanced diet and regular physical activity.
So it's a tool to help make those changes stick.
You could definitely see it that way. It's a powerful tool, but it works best within a whole strategy. The real goal is sustainable, healthy habits, and this can be a big help in getting there.
And compared to other similar medications, these other GLP-1 drugs, how does semaglutide stack up? Is it, stronger?
That's a good question. Research does suggest it has a more pronounced effect on weight loss compared to some others in its class.
Any idea why?
Well, it seems to be partly because it has a longer half-life in the body, so it sticks around longer, which allows for that once-weekly dosing.
Okay.
And it also seems particularly good at affecting appetite regulation signals directly in the brain.
Ah.
So yeah, studies generally show a higher percentage of people achieve really significant weight loss with semaglutide compared to some of the other options. Enhanced potency, basically.
Okay, so powerful tool, works best with lifestyle changes. Got it. But let's talk about the other side effects, risks. What should people be aware of?
Yeah, really important to cover this. The most common things people report are gastrointestinal issues.
Like nausea.
Nausea, yeah, diarrhea, sometimes constipation, those are the big ones.
And are they usually bad? Do they last?
Well, the key thing is they're usually mild to moderate. And importantly, they often tend to decrease as your body gets used to the medication.
Ah, so they might fade over time.
Exactly. Especially if the dose is increased slowly, which is the standard way it's done. So for many people, they're manageable and temporary.
Okay, that's reassuring for the common ones. What about more serious, maybe rarer risks?
Yes, there are potential risks, although they seem less common. Things like pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas,
Okay,
and possibly complications for people who already have diabetic retinopathy.
right. eye issues related to diabetes.
Exactly. And this is precisely why it's absolutely critical to have a really thorough discussion with your doctor. Go over your whole medical history, any concerns.
Before even thinking about starting it.
Absolutely. The sources stress that serious side effects are rare and often linked to pre-existing conditions. So that medical consultation is non-negotiable.
Understood. And just to clarify, this isn't only for people with diabetes anymore, correct? The book suggests being used more broadly.
That's right. That's a really important point. While it started with type 2 diabetes, the significant weight loss effect means it's now also approved and used for people without diabetes who are dealing with overweight or obesity.
So it opens it up as an option for a wider group of people struggling with weight.
Exactly. A valuable option for more people trying to manage their weight and improve their health overall.
Okay, this brings us to a really interesting quote from Dan Hollis. Semaglutide doesn't fix you, it gives you space to fix yourself. Can you unpack that a bit? What's the core idea?
Yeah, I found that really insightful too. Hollis is basically saying, look, the medication isn't an automatic fix. It doesn't just magically solve everything long term.
Right.
What it does do, by quieting down that intense hunger and those cravings, is it creates this opportunity, this space.
Space for what?
Space for you to actually implement the crucial lifestyle changes. The healthier eating, the exercise. You can focus on building those habits without constantly fighting overwhelming physical urges.
I see. So it removes a major biological barrier.
Exactly. It tackles the biology, which then gives you the bandwidth, you could say, to work on the behavior change needed for lasting success.
That makes a lot of sense. It's using the drug's effect to enable those other changes. Now, Hollis also talks about this idea of a hallway between biology and identity. What's he getting at there?
This is where it gets really fascinating, moving beyond just the physical. He suggests that for a lot of people, hunger and eating aren't just about fuel.
Right. There's more to it.
Yeah, they can get tangled up with other needs, comfort, coping with stress, maybe even feeling like you belong.
Emotional eating, essentially.
Or more than that even. And his quote, "When the cravings stop, the truth begins," is really powerful.
Explain that.
Well, when that constant noise of food and cravings goes quiet because of the medication, what's left? You might suddenly be face to face with the underlying reasons why you were overeating. The stress, the anxiety, the loneliness.
Wow. Okay, so the silence can actually be quite confronting.
It really can be a major shift and potentially challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And Hollis points out a real risk here: isolation. He says quite powerfully, most people don't fail because medication doesn't work. They fail because they were alone.
Wow. That's a strong statement.
It is. He's emphasizing that having support, friends, family, maybe a support group, isn't just nice to have. He calls it neurobiological scaffolding.
Neurobiological scaffolding, meaning?
Meaning it's like essential structural support for your brain and your emotions as you go through these big internal changes that come with weight loss. It's crucial.
He also mentions something about the body changing faster than our sense of self. Your body changes faster than your identity? That feels profound.
It really does. Think about it. We often build up an identity partly based on how we look, our relationship with food, how we navigate the world in our body.
Sure.
When someone loses a significant amount of weight, especially relatively quickly with medication, there can be this disconnect. You might look in the mirror and not quite recognize yourself.
Or not know how to act in social situations.
Exactly. Or just feel fundamentally different, maybe disoriented. Hollis calls this feeling identity grief.
Identity grief, like mourning a part of your old self.
Kind of. He quotes someone saying, "The weight came off, then I realized I had no idea who I was without it." It highlights that the internal work, the identity shift, needs to happen alongside the physical change.
So it's not just about the mechanics of eating less.
It's about living more, as Hollis puts it beautifully. It's about filling that space that maybe food used to occupy with other meaningful things, activities, relationships, a new sense of purpose.
Finding new ways to cope, new sources of meaning.
Precisely. And he makes this great point. Weight loss is biology. Staying there is narrative.
Narrative, meaning the story you tell yourself.
Yeah. You have to rewrite your story. Create a new narrative about who you are now, how you live, what matters to you to sustain the changes long term.
Because if you don't address those underlying needs,
then, Hollis warns, the cravings might relapse into confusion. The urge to overeat might come back, not from physical hunger, but because those deeper emotional needs aren't being met in other ways.
So the story, the narrative, is what keeps you grounded in the new reality.
It seems to be a key part of making it stick. It
Mm-hmm.
really shows how complex this whole process is, much more than just calories.
Definitely. Okay, shifting gears slightly to the practical side, what about cost? Is semaglutide expensive? Is it easy to get?
Yeah, the sources do mention that cost can be a pretty significant barrier for a lot of people. And
Right.
insurance coverage can really vary wildly, so access isn't always straightforward. That's a definite practical hurdle to consider.
Good to know. And looking ahead, what's next in this area? Future research.
Well, the book suggests more research is definitely needed, especially on the really long-term effects of using semaglutide,
Makes sense.
and also exploring how it might work best when combined with other kinds of treatments for weight management. It's a field that's moving fast, lots of ongoing work.
Okay, so wrapping things up, it feels like the big picture is semaglutide is a genuinely promising, effective tool for weight loss.
Yes, definitely a significant tool.
But it's not a magic wand. It works best as part of a package deal.
Exactly. Integrated with those healthy lifestyle changes, diet, exercise.
And crucially, it seems, with strong support systems to handle the psychological side, the identity shifts we talked about.
Precisely. It needs commitment and that holistic view. And, we have to repeat this. Everything we've discussed is for educational purposes.
Absolutely, not medical advice.
Not at all. Anyone considering this needs a detailed personal conversation with their own doctor. Period.
Couldn't agree more. That's so vital. And that final thought from Dan Hollis really sticks with me. Weight loss can change your body, but only story can change your future.
Hmm. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. It encourages you to think about what story are you writing for yourself as you go on any health journey, weight loss, or otherwise.
Yeah. Looking beyond just the numbers on the scale to the narrative of your life, we hope this dive gave you some food for thought. We encourage you to explore more, talk to your healthcare providers, and find the path that's right for you.